Well, when you think about Miami, of course, it's all about the U. Last season, 6-6, they banned themselves from a bowl game, all because the NCAA, well, they're doing their own investigating. Miami hasn't been acting too kindly lately because players have been taking money, they've been taking gifts, they've been getting other benefits from boosters, major NCAA no-nos. The NCAA, although they haven't announced penalties yet, you can bet that they will. They could be announcing them at any time during the 2012 season. Yeah, try to be a Miami player or coach with that hanging over your head. And those penalties could include probation. Of course, NCAA hasn't said anything yet, so as of now, as we're doing this report in late July, Miami's still in the clear as far as being eligible for any type of postseason play. But that's not the only thing Miami has to worry about. You see, entering this year, they have more starters to replace than any other team in the Coastal Division, and that includes the quarterback, as Ja'Cory Harris finally ran out of eligibility. It'll either be Stephen Morris or Ryan Williams' job, and from all indications I could gather, it looks like it's going to be Morris will be the starting quarterback. Last season, Miami did a much better job in controlling turnovers than they did the year before. That'll help, but now with a new quarterback, we'll see if Morris can keep the interceptions down, which is what Harris did last season. The Hurricanes also have to replace their leading running back, as Lamar Miller, their 1,200-yard running back from a year ago, he's gone, so that does hurt Miami's rushing attack. And the offensive line, well, they've got some players to replace up front, but it does help to have back Brandon Leonard to the team. Leonard is a all-ACC type guard, so that will help. Defensively, there are also some shoes to fill. While we said that Miami's offense last year did a good job in controlling their turnovers, the defense didn't do a whole lot as far as creating them, only creating 15 takeaways in 2012. One big benefit for Miami, though, is getting back their safety, Ray Armstrong, a guy who could very well be in the NFL one day. Armstrong missed part of 2011, but he should be ready to go for the Hurricanes. If you're looking at Miami's schedule, early on they're going to have some tests on the road, including at Boston College. You might say, well, Boston College isn't much, but remember, last year Boston College won at Miami, and that's going to be the first game of the year, Miami at BC. Plus there's road games at Kansas State in the return game in which the Wildcats beat them a year ago, plus you play at Georgia Tech. The October schedule, it gets tougher with games against Notre Dame in Chicago at Soldier Field, and you get North Carolina, Florida State, and Virginia Tech in the following few weeks, but at least those three games are at home. It'll be close for Miami, but I think they're going to be probably a 6-win squad this year. They still have enough talent on that team to be competitive in a lot of their games, but the issue is that the talent is inexperienced. It's pretty raw. It's not really proven as far as widespread. So I think Miami, with that tough schedule and with those sanctions looming not too far away, I think for Miami, they're going to struggle to try to finish any higher than 4th in the Coastal Division. Now we're looking at North Carolina. We talked about Miami possibly looking at sanctions. Well, North Carolina, they've been sanctioned thanks to Butch Davis, who's no longer there, their former head coach. North Carolina is not eligible this year to play in the ACC title game or in any bowl game for that matter. But they'll still be pretty good because of the fact that they are bringing in Larry Fedora, the former Oklahoma State offensive coordinator and the former head coach of Southern Miss, who led the Eagles to a Conference USA title a year ago, will change the offense up completely at UNC. Bryn Renner will be back at QB for the Tar Heels, and I thought he did a pretty good job last season in replacement of TJ Yates, who's now with the Houston Texans. Renner last season led the ACC in passing efficiency, not bad for first-year QB. But I mentioned earlier, they're changing the offense up. They're going to be going to a no-huddle spread-type offense. That means they're going to be running a bunch of plays. They're going to be going no-huddle, and the idea is to try to wear the defense out. We'll see if that works in this very first season under the new offense that Larry Fedora will be installing. Giovanni Bernard returns at running back for the Tar Heels. But as far as the offensive line goes, this is going to be a big strength for UNC in my opinion. Returning Jonathan Cooper, an NFL-type body, along with the other tackle, that is James Hurst. The receiving core for UNC, they have to compensate for the loss of Dwight Jones. Eric Highsmith hopes to be Renner's new favorite target. We'll see how that works out. Defensively, they're changing things up as well, with the Tar Heels going to a 4-2-5 defense, and that might be a good thing because last year North Carolina was extremely vulnerable against the pass. One of the biggest reasons why they weren't more competitive in the Coastal Division. Their leading tackler returning is Kevin Reddick. He plays linebacker. And at defensive back, Trey Boston. He is a pure hitter. But he really is one of the few bright spots in that secondary. And I think that's where it's all going to boil down to, like I said earlier, in the secondary. They can improve there. The defense itself will be in better shape. Looking at the schedule for North Carolina, I really don't think it's that bad. In fact, I think it's probably the kindest of the schedules in the Coastal. Early on, you play at Louisville, but that's a game that I think North Carolina could very well win. And then October, you play Vautech, and then you go to Miami. That's probably going to be the roughest stretch of that schedule, but there's no Clemson and there's no Florida State on it. And for North Carolina, if you're a fan of theirs, you're probably thinking it's a darn shame that they are prohibited from going to any postseason play, because I really think that they would give Virginia Tech all they want. And, of course, they get Vautech at home. All North Carolina can do this year is try to play spoiler against anybody that they play. Next year, I think, will be the year with that probation over that UNC can get right back into the thick of things in the Coastal. But this year, of course, all they can do is play spoiler. If you're looking at Virginia, you're looking at a team in the past that hadn't done a heck of a lot. Then Mike London comes in, and he earns ACC Coach of the Year, and why not? The guy led Virginia to an 8-5 record, which really hasn't, success just really hasn't happened at UVA in a while. But he's turned that program around. That's the good news. The not so good news for Virginia is that they have a lot of bodies to replace, especially on defense, which we'll talk about in a second. On the offensive side, though, their QB does return in Michael Rocco. Rocco, last year, passing-wise, he was okay, but nothing great. 13 touchdowns, but he threw 12 interceptions. We'll see how he does with Perry Jones returning at running back, and we'll also see how he does because of the fact that both of his tackles return, including an all-ACC tackle in Ode Abushi and also Morgan Moses. So the protection from the outside should be there for Rocco. It'll be up to him, though, to try to improve on those numbers from a year ago. And they also really need help as far as wide receiver. They're pretty inexperienced there. As far as the defense goes, they got to replace most of the line, and they got to replace a good chunk of the secondary. So I think if the defensive back, that's Demetrius Nicholson, can come through, that'll definitely help in that department. Virginia, if you look at their schedule, it's just like North Carolina's. There's no Clemson or Florida State to be found on it. And early on, they get a game against Penn State, which now looks more winnable now that Penn State's got all of those things off the field to deal with. And then if you look also at their schedule later in the year, playing at Georgia Tech and at TCU back-to-back, those are also September games. So September is going to be a very curious month if you're a Cavalier fan. The schedule eases up in October, but the ending of it, North Carolina State, as well as Vautech. So I think for Virginia, with this schedule, and also due to the fact that you have to replace so many players, I think it'll be a winning year for Virginia, probably 7-5, but I think they're going to be very hard-pressed to try to duplicate or even surpass that win total from a year before. A lot of players to replace at UVA, and I think that's the biggest reason why they take maybe just a step back from where they were the year before, but it should still be a bowl season for those guys. The Duke Blue Devils last season started 3-2. Things were looking kind of nice, and then it went Nestea plunge style, losing their last 7 ball games. Offensively, they hit a wall. Defensively, didn't tackle very well, couldn't stop anyone. This year, they're hoping that they can learn from last year's bad experience. QB returns in Sean Renfrey. Boy, the Coastal Division has a lot of quarterbacks coming back this year. He's been there. This will be his 3rd year starting. And Duke last year, they were able to move the ball. I mean, the guy threw for a ton of yardage. The problem was that he wasn't very accurate, and Renfrey threw a lot of interceptions. So you know what has to change there. Connor Vernon also returns to a top receiver. Heard a lot of good things about him. He's back at the wideout. And if you're looking at the defensive side, an area where they were vulnerable in, well, it doesn't help that they've lost all ACC safety in Matt Daniels. But the defensive line for the Blue Devils is experienced with Justin Fox returning. The big thing for Duke, I think, is going to be rush defense. That's where it starts. Last year, susceptible against the run, to say the least, giving up a little more than 5 yards per carry. Duke's schedule, the September part of it's not bad, other than a game at Stanford, which they'll get clobbered. But then once you get into the middle of the schedule, Duke's true colors are probably going to show with Florida State and Clemson and Virginia Tech. That's right, Duke did not draw the favorable part of that opposite division, the Atlantic, by getting the two heavyweights in the Seminoles and Tigers. For Duke, I don't foresee them being any better than last season. I know the quarterback returns, but to me, there are still too many widespread issues for the Blue Devils to get out of last place in the Coastal Division, and that's where I think they'll finish up. Well, for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, last season it started with a bang but ended with a thud. They won their first 6 games in 2011, but lost 5 of their last 7. Biggest reason for their slide was because the defense could not contain anybody in the passing department, gave up way too many big plays. And Georgia Tech's offense, although it's very effective when you're winning because you can wear the other team out by eating up yardage, eating up minutes, and you keep your defense off the field for as long as possible, it's bad when you trail by at least a couple of touchdowns because it's not a quick striking offense and you have to throw a lot more than you would like. So for Georgia Tech, no question, the second half of the season left a pretty sour taste in their mouth. But they hope to get back some momentum this year. It helps to return the quarterback. That's Tevin Washington. He's back along with the running back. That's Orwin Smith. Now, as far as the line goes, I think this is going to be a big strength for Georgia Tech. It helps to have the All-American back, the offensive guard. That's Amorge Uzi. He's one of the best in the country. Defensively, this is an area, again, we talk about the secondary. They'll have a lot of those players back, but have they gotten any better? That's the $64,000 question with Isaiah Johnson returning at a safety position. The linebacking core for Georgia Tech, it looks pretty stout with Jeremy Atauchu. He returns to the team. So the biggest area for Georgia Tech, besides the fact that the secondary has to prove themselves, is also going to be on the defensive line where they play 3 down linemen, but 2 of those guys will be new entering this year. So I think the offense, again, will still will be one of the leading teams in the country in rushing, but defensively, I'm not so sure how they're going to do. The schedule for Georgia Tech, they open the year at Virginia Tech. That's the game that, in my opinion, with UNC on probation, that will decide who's going to represent the Coastal. I think the game carries that much importance. There'll be a Labor Day night game on a Monday, nationally televised. There won't be any other games on. So a lot of the country's eyes will be on Blacksburg with that Georgia Tech-Virginia Tech matchup. I think the game carries that much weight. It does help to not have Florida State on the schedule, but they got to play at Clemson, later in the year. And they'll also have some games later in the year against BYU. That'll be a pretty good test. Plus, at the end of the year, also out of league playing at Georgia. So Georgia Tech will have enough hurdles on the schedule to try to jump over. They'll be successful in some games, but not in all. They will probably be Virginia Tech's stiffest competition as far as trying to get to that Coastal Division Championship game, but I think they fall just short because I don't know how the secondary is going to do, and plus, when they fall behind in games, I don't know how much they can rely on that passing attack because a triple option threat isn't really prone for that. And now we talk about the Virginia Tech Hokies, a team that knows a thing or two about winning Coastal Division titles and about winning ACC championships for that matter. They fell short just a year ago, but still got to a BCS game before losing in overtime to Michigan. That was the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. Logan Thomas is only one of 3 starters back on the offensive side for the Hokies. They did lose quite a bit on the offensive side. The running game could take a hit as well with David Wilson gone. We'll see how those backups from a year ago now come into the forefront, getting a lot more playing time. And Marcus Davis, wide receiver, he's back for Virginia Tech, so that will help. But again, like I said, it's going to be virtually a new offensive line. But the one thing that Frank Beamer seems to do He always gets really good recruiting classes, especially up front. So perhaps the offensive line, even though they're going to be inexperienced, I think as the year goes along, as long as they can develop at the pace that Beamer is hoping for, their offense, I think, will be okay. Defensively is the biggest reason why I think Virginia Tech is going to win this division. One of the best defenses in the country a year ago, and they did it primarily with sophomores. 9 defensive players come back for the Hokies, including Derek Hopkins from his defensive tackle spot, as well as Bruce Taylor at linebacker, and as well as cornerback Kyle Fuller. All ACC dandies on the defensive side. They're pretty much solidified as far as the line, the linebackers, and the defensive backfield. Virginia Tech's defense alone is going to keep them in every game that they play in. The Coastal Division is not very strong this year, and with that defense and with Logan Thomas back at QB, the offense might struggle a little bit in the first half of the season, but I'll look for the defense to carry this team, and I think Virginia Tech is going to win the Coastal Division. However, in the ACC title game, I think they're going to fall just short against Florida State. Florida State has too much widespread talent. They're pretty darn good offensively, and just like Va-Tech, Florida State has a good defense. To me, there aren't as many questions about Florida State as there are about Va-Tech. I like Va-Tech to win the Coastal, but I like Florida State to win the ACC title game, and for Florida State to get to a BCS bowl game for the first time in 7 seasons. Hard to believe it's been that long for the Seminoles.